Hey everybody, Rich here coming at you with a quick video. I just wanted to share something with you guys on a podcast I subscribe to. It's really one of my favorite podcasts of all, and I subscribe to quite a few and spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. This one is called Baseball by the Book. Um, it's described as a veteran baseball writer and editor explores the world of books about baseball through interviews with today's best baseball authors. And when I first subscribed to this, I was a little worried that it was just going to be authors promoting their books. But the fact is that the interviews are really fantastic. I mean, I get something out of every one of these, whether I decide to read the book or not. It's just really, really interesting, educational, stimulating talk about different aspects of the game. And a lot of times, what they talk about has very little to do with the book per se and everything to do with the subject at hand. So, what inspired me today to make this video was the podcast I heard by an author or interviewing an author who wrote this book about baseball cards. It's called Game Faces, and it's all about early tobacco cards and the really the first baseball cards and how baseball cards really came to be a thing at all. I'm trying to find that episode on here for you. It should be pretty high up on the list. I think it's the December 10th episode. There it is, Game Faces. So it's this author, Peter Devereaux, takes us on a tour of rare and colorful early baseball cards from the Library of Congress's Benjamin K. Edwards collection. I don't know if you guys can see this, but that's why I'm reading it to you. The book features 300 tobacco cards issued between 1887 and 1914. And as I understand it, I mean, I haven't read this book yet, but I'm going to try to get a hold of it. And the interesting thing is that this collection that he writes about of early baseball cards is actually on display. I believe it's still being exhibited at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. So if you can get there, it's free admission. It's just, it's like a public museum. I encourage you to go there and see these baseball cards for yourself firsthand. I mean, it's like a national treasure of baseball cards. And if you can't get there, like me, you can go online to LOC, Library of Congress.gov, and the collection is on display there. I haven't even looked through the whole thing yet, but check this out. I mean, here's a Philadelphia Phillies baseball card from the T200 series. I believe this is 1910. I looked at this already. But, there's 300 of these cards in the collection. And there's a lot of other stuff there at the Library of Congress, too. I was pretty impressed to find out about the baseball history that's been archived there. I mean, look at that. Fatima, Cigarettes, Philadelphia Nationals, they're calling themselves, actually, on this card. I don't necessarily know all the history of the Phillies, but T200 team card, created in 1913. Okay, I mean, that's just one, and it's got all this information about the card. So I'm not going to go through this at length, but I would just encourage you guys to check this out online. Anyone that's a collector of or interested in early tobacco cards, I mean, this has got to be a real treasure trove of information and imagery. So just kind of passing this information along to you guys to let you know it's out there. I learned a lot just listening to this podcast today, too. Like I said, this is a phenomenal podcast. I would definitely encourage anybody that has a chance to check out this, if you're a podcast person or interested in podcasts, check out this, if it'll ever focus, Baseball by the Book podcast. It's really, really good. I get a lot of hours of enjoyment out of this. I haven't heard a bad interview yet. Like I said, sometimes I get the book. Like here's The Big Fella by Jane Levy. I'm currently reading now. Really different sort of biography of Babe Ruth. If you've read a bunch of Babe Ruth biographies like I have, and don't want to just hear the same story over and over again, this is a lot of extra information not included in the other books, a lot of peripheral information. I learned about this on this Baseball by the Book podcast, and really digging it. So like I said, sometimes I decide to read the book. Other times I just take in the podcast for its own sake, which is always rewarding. I learned a lot today, more than I ever knew about, early tobacco cards. I had no idea. I didn't even, if you're a big collector or if you collect tobacco cards, you probably know a lot of stuff that I didn't know. But everybody knows T205s, T206, but I never even knew what the T stood for. T is for 20th century. The early 20th century, and then the even earlier cards, the N, like the N28, the N20 or whatever, 19th century. So the N's are older than the T's. I think I knew that much, but I never knew what the N and the T stood for. There's just a lot of information out there you get just by listening to these podcasts, and I highly recommend this one. That's all I have to say. I'm going to probably wrap it up now. I was going to try to keep this pretty short. I don't have a lot of information for you, but like I said, I would encourage you to go to this website, Library of Congress, LOC.GOV, and check out this baseball card collection. Or if you can get to the Library of Congress on the Smithsonian Mall in Washington, D.C., I'd go see it for myself. They have a lot of other baseball history there too, stuff that's been archived from the early days of the sport, and it sounds phenomenal. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Here's a brief look at some of my other podcasts. I also recommend this. Another one of my favorites is This Week in Baseball. Some other sports writers that make this thing. It's also a very good podcast. I might talk about that at length another time, but there it is. You can see some of my other interests there. Anyway, that's it. Dead Ball is another good one. If you guys know any really good podcasts, baseball or otherwise, I'd be happy to hear about it in the comments. That's it, everybody. There's George Bush, Yale baseball player and former president of the United States. Peace out. God bless. Y'all be cool. See you around.